today people fear going to the gym, fear starting a business, fear asking a girl out, you know. Those are just like small, simplistic things. People allow fear to dominate their life to where it cripples them, and they're not really able to advance much.
The consequence of your actions that fear is tied to is significantly less now than it used to be.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Beyond Logic. So this is episode 5. Yeah, so we actually just got done recording episode 4. And so we're doing like, back to back. Bro, I just like to I want to share whatever I want to share, bro.
Why did you bother changing then?
What did I bother changing?
It's going to be the same day. Why did you bother changing? Why did you put up the illusion that this is another day with a new episode?
That was not actually what I was trying to do.
I'm just playing with you, man.
This guy's a hater,
go ahead
bro.
With your intro. I'm sorry.
This guy's a hater, bro.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I like to change. I'm like, okay, let me see the vibe that I'm gonna get from this. You know, it's gonna be different.
Chat, is this black? Is he wearing black, or is he wearing some other color? What do you see?
Obviously, you're colorblind. Obviously, you're colorblind. This is not black. It's kind of like the image of the dress that they had on. You know what I'm talking about? Like the blue and the
What did you see?
I saw purple.
You saw purple? Bro, you colorblind. Everyone's saying gold or blue, and you said purple.
Oh la la. So very interesting thing that we're going to talk about in the podcast. Don't mind this. Interesting thing that I want to talk about today. And I think this is something that is something that we all deal with. That's something that is innate in human, in just like in humans, right? And so this thing that we're going to talk about is fear. Because what I want to touch upon is like the biblical aspect of what does God say about fear, what does science say about fear, and so we're going to touch upon those two specific points, you know. But before we even jump into that, I just always like to have just kind of like a conversation, and then boom, then we dive in. Yeah. All right. Okay. Kai, what do you before we dive in?
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Why are you laughing?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Why are you laughing? By the way, I love this. By the way. I love this.
I'm laughing because you're like, oh, I would start with the conversation and then like, is there any questions to start the conversation? How do you want to start? What do you want to, But all right.
What's going on in your...
Nothing much.
How's business, bro?
Everything's good.
Yeah.
Honestly, nothing to report.
Nothing to report?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's good. Well, then we can dive straight in. Yeah.
Yes.
And then we can dive straight in. Fear. Like, dude, why do you think people fear? I'll give you like my perspective on this. But like, why do you think people fear?
I think it's just a natural instinct that we have.
Okay.
It's not necessarily something we can control.
Okay. Yep.
It's what's given to us by God to know when something is dangerous, something might hurt us, or might lead to some negative consequences.
Yeah.
So we have fear to kind of as our body's signal to tell you that, hey, you got to pay attention to this. Right.
So like fear, it's essentially like a survival mechanism. Like, as science says, like in the past, that's what has helped us evade danger and essentially help our species advance. Right. So that's essentially what science says. I think some part of it is true. Yeah, some part of it is true. But here's the thing with fear. I think fear can be both a very good thing, like the survival mechanism of it, but I think at the same time it also cripples us, right, from doing a lot of things that we were meant and created to do, right? We shouldn't fear all things, but I think honestly a lot of people just so many things that everybody fear. Like today, people fear going to the gym, fear starting a business, fear asking a girl out. You know, those are just like small, simplistic thing, but just people allow fear to dominate their life to where it cripples them, and they're not really able to advance much and essentially do what God has created them to do. It's funny, we were actually talking about this. Fear is probably the most, I think it's the word you mentioned this, like it's the word that is repeated or said the most in the Bible. I don't know if you know by how much, but
I
that's
don't know. They're just on do not fear.
yeah, the word do not fear. Yeah, do not fear. Right? Do you know by like the volume or the number of times it's said in the Bible? You said that like you knew.
I said it was a lot. I don't know the exact number.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're asking for? The exact number?
Yeah, but
No,
it's
I
a
don't.
lot. It's quite a lot. It's quite a
I
lot.
think it's in the hundreds or something.
Hundreds?
200 maybe? I don't know.
Okay.
There's a lot.
Yeah, but and that's the thing, cause like in our like this as we grow up, we're this. Ooh, this is quite interesting. Yeah, as we grow up, I think fear is also thought upon us, right? There's like the natural instinct of okay, you like this just things that you should fear because not fearing those things could put you in danger, like survival in a survival way, right? But a lot of fear is also thought upon us. I was actually watching a video on I think it was on Instagram. So they had like these kids, these babies, right? They laid them out on a mat, like a playground. They were playing with the toys. And dude, they put snakes. Obviously, this would train
Oh, I
snakes. You
saw
seen that
this.
video?
Yes.
Did I send it to you?
No, I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
I
this
just
was
saw it on my own.
yeah, and this also kind of struck up the topic. And so they put these snakes around the babies, and you see the babies, they're just looking at the things like just not minding it, and they just continue playing with the toys. And some of the kids were curious about it, and started touching the snake and like grabbing it and whatnot. Yeah. Again, obviously this was like an experiment, and like the snakes were trained, which kind of makes me think, how do you train snakes? But anyway,
I think there's just different passive snakes. They're not dangerous. They don't bite.
Yeah, and like they're like non-venomous,
Yeah.
But back to the point, what I'm saying, like fear is also trained. We're trained to fear, right? And so it's like if fear can be trained, it can also be untrained, right? And I think particularly me, like I'm terrified of snakes. I think like a lot of people like terrified of snakes.
I didn't know that.
Okay, you don't need to know that. But yeah, I'm terrified of snakes, right? But just kind of seeing that video kind of made me think, so okay, if I wanted to untrain myself to not be afraid of snakes, like what would I do? Right? What would be like the procedure for that? And the reason that I mentioned this is like a lot of us too that are fear of things that we want to do, right? The very fear stops us from, again, whether starting a business, because like we're business owners, right? For a long time too, like before I started my business, like I was afraid of it, right? And typically the things that are associated with fear is, okay, cool. I'm fear that this business is not going to work if in this particular example. Okay, this, people starting a business, like my family may think of me like it's just not what my family does, because like nobody in my family at the time perhaps has started a business, right? And so there's a long list of things that essentially come together to the reason why we fear, right? I hope this is making sense, But yeah, I want to further dive on this topic and just kind of see like what does the Bible says about fear, and it also says like perfect love cast out all fear, right? And so a solution to not fearing is just it's love, right? What particular verse does this say that?
I'm curious by that, what that means. I'm curious by what you mean by that.
Perfect love casts out all fear. Yeah. So this is Yeah, this is in 1 John. Yeah, 1 John 4-18. Perfect love cast out all fear. Now, exactly what that means, I'll give you my perspective of what that means. But perfect love cast out all fear. For like first, before I answer that, like I wanna ask you, Kyle, like what do you think that means?
What do I think?
Perfect love cast out all fear.
I don't know. To be honest, I would assume it has something to do with Jesus's perfect love for us, gives us the ability to cast out fear in His name, maybe. But I would have to read the whole page and passage to get more context.
Okay.
Because there's definitely some more stuff around that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like I'm trying to conceptualize that in my head. How can you love your way out of fear? I don't. Like a tiger staring at you. You think you're about to be eaten, do you love the tiger and your fear will go away? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there's also like the passage in I don't know who it was, when he was in prison with the lion. you probably don't know the passage in the Bible, but yeah, he was face to face with a lion, and he was just not afraid. And I think that's also just kind of having like the Spirit of God in us. When we have the Spirit of God in us, like we don't fear, right? And the Spirit of God is love. And so once we have that in us, we typically don't fear. And you know, I think there's multiple ways in which that we can kind of go about this. But I think just kind of what it means in that specific passage. And it also says this: "Fear not, for I am with you." Right? This is kind of going back to like the Spirit of God is in us. Right? When we have the Spirit of God in us, like we don't fear. And that's not to say like if you're in the wild, you encounter a lion, like you're not gonna fear. Like that's not exactly what I'm saying. But just kind of speaking in this just everyday life, right? When you have the Spirit of God in you, like you're not gonna be as afraid as just like the average person is. That's like constantly afraid of literally like everything to a large extent, you know. So like having the Spirit of God in you, I think that may quiet down the fear to some degree, right? And so that's kind of particularly what I think that this particular verse means.
Yeah, it's really about because what does fear do to you? It makes you choose between fight or flight.
Yeah, because
right?
you have like the
So
fight, flight, or
that's your
freeze
usual
response.
response.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that the Spirit of God, if it's in you, will tell you to go one way or the other. But at the same time, it's like, you know, if you are face to face with a bear in the woods, you're not supposed to run. If you run, they'll chase you and eat you.
That's true.
That's
That's
what you
true.
would do in a flight situation. But if you like make yourself look bigger and intimidating, you might leave you alone.
Yeah.
Or there's some bears where you're like, you're supposed to lay down.
Yeah.
I forgot which one's which. I'm not gonna say because I don't want to.
Yeah,
You know, but
and so just like even like the philosophical perspective of like fear, right? It's like is it rational or is it irrational to fear? Because I think a lot of fear too.
definitely rational.
Rational,
But it
'cause I
depends
think-
on what it is.
yeah.
There's a context to that.
I think a lot of it too is just it's imagine.
So I think the day and age that we live in now, a lot of fear is irrational. Because
Okay.
our fear mechanism was designed to help us survive in a very dangerous world. And we don't live in a very dangerous world anymore. So a lot of our fear is not really founded on reality.
Yep.
It's like
Outdated.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Because you're placing your thoughts of what might happen, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do this because I think that might happen. But our fear response tells us like, oh, you're going to die if you do this. That's what we feel, and that's what like our fear is designed to do. But the consequences of our actions nowadays is much less. Like you're not going to die.
Right.
Like let's say you're investing $1,000 in crypto. Like you're scared you might lose the money and you have the fear. But back then it's like, oh, you're investing or whatever. Like, oh, this is like food for the year or whatever. You know, it's very different. I don't know if I'm using that in the right metaphor, but just saying like the fear, the consequence of your actions, that fear is tied to is significantly less now than it used to be. So we really have very little reasons to fear things.
Yeah, and that's why I say it's outdated. Like with the crypto thing that you just mentioned, like if you invest like $1,000, like if you lose that, you're not gonna die. But I
It's
think
gonna hurt.
yeah,
gonna hurt.
it is gonna hurt, you know. But I think possibly because like the mind or the brain, that's like doesn't necessarily know what's real or what's not. That's a big distinction that I want to further kind of double tap on. But I think if you dive deeper, if the brain probably thinks, okay, if I invest $1,000, I might, I'll lose the whole thing. And then if I lose the whole thing, like perhaps like I won't have enough like money to buy food to be able like to survive. And I think that's probably what the brain is trying to, it roots it back to like old time. I think that's probably that is probably what it tries to do. If I have no money, then I don't have like the money for food to be able to survive, to be able to take care of myself, to be able to take care of like other people, right? And so that's what I mean. It's outdated, and I think to a large extent we kind of have to like reprogram and to like retrain our brain to kind of adapt to like the current environment of where there's not a tiger leaping on every corner of the street that is trying to eat us, right? There's food everywhere, and like food is relatively like cheap these days, you know. But I think just like that fear mechanism to a large extent is
Not
like
cheap, but it's abundant. It's accessible.
well, it is abundant, and I think it's also cheap, bro.
Compared to back then, yes.
Yeah,
I
compared to
wouldn't say food is cheap right now. It's just my overall statement of
and-
current economics
yeah, I mean like
state
just
of our country.
like okay, so like McDonald's is like very cheap. I think it's cheep, right?
food?
Huh? I mean, but
I'm
that's
kidding.
it's food though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, no, no.
And,
I
and so
get it.
that's what I mean. It's like you
But
can.
even like McDonald's is like, dude, what is this? A McChicken for $3.29 now? It used to be $1. What is going on? I'm
Well,
not cool with that. That's not cheap
he's
to
like,
me.
I'm
That's
not.
not cheap to me.
I'm not cool.
I
But
haven't eaten McDonald's in years, by the way.
I
So,
mean, same. I have not eaten, but
but that just doesn't sound worth it.
yeah, but it's still food. Like that's the point in which that I'm trying to.
Yes,
It's
yes.
still food, and it's
Sorry, go
relatively
ahead.
cheap now. Like everybody has like access to it. Remember we talked about like not interrupting. Now you made me. Nah, I'm joking with you, but and so I'm curious. Like, do you, again, because it's something that we all deal with. Like, in what particular time? Like, was there anything that you were so scared of that like crippled you to not take a particular action? And I'm talking about like kind of like a big event, or maybe just starting a business, or
Um, Big event. I don't know, man. I feel like I've always been pretty good at that, like being self-aware of my fear. Once I feel the fear once, I'm like I know it's there. I can't stop thinking about it.
what
I'll
do you
give you an
mean?
example. Like back in the day when I was when I was very afraid to talk to girls, like high school, I would be very scared. It was like, oh, what if I say something wrong? Like, oh, what if she makes fun of me? Like, whatever, right? Oh, she's not gonna like me, whatever. Uh, that fear lingered in my head until I could address it.
Like,
Couldn't get over it.
it's there until you address it.
I'm not in the state of fear constantly, but I'm thinking about why was I scared of this, and then once I addressed it by facing the fear, then the fear went away, and it took time, but I would say that for me, most things have always been that. I don't think it's always been like a big, like even in business, like you start a business, do you really, like most people think, all right, I'm taking a giant leap and I'm starting to, no, well, you don't have to start there. You're taking the giant chasm jump before you take the steps to climb up to the place where you jump. Like you haven't even gotten up there. You didn't even try anything yet. Like why are you scared when there's no risk involved? You could just take a few steps towards whatever goal it is to start the business, start the LLC, get the name, you could get the product going, throw some ideas out there. You really just invested your time. It's very low investment. You shouldn't have fear in those stages. If you have fear in those stages, then it's a little bit different. I think it's more of just
And that's like, but see, like so many people have that fear of even just taking that initial step, and it's still part of like
yeah, and
fear.
I think that's what it is. They're thinking it's this big thing I got to jump off of when you could break it down into very little manageable steps. A lot of people have fear of going to the gym
Yep.
because they're afraid they're going to get judged.
Yep, that's the big thing.
That's a big one.
And now
And
because they don't know what they don't know what they're
they don't
doing
know what
and
they're
how they
doing.
look.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And the only way to address that is just go to the gym once. You don't even have to work out. Just go to the gym, step in there, walk around, look at all the other people doing their thing, and then maybe talk to a few people, talk to the trainers.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you'll see like, all right, you got your foot in the door. Next time you can go and prepare and actually work out. Little steps. Don't make it, because what fear does when you hold on to it is it takes a little thing and it makes it way bigger than it actually is, to the point where you are scared to
It
do
cripples
anything
you.
about it.
Yeah, it really does cripple you. Yeah.
But fear, you're letting it cripple you. There's no fear that you really ultimately can't overcome. Even the fear of death.
Oof, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Oof, that's a big one.
I think the fear of death is, I mean, it's the greatest fear we have in our life is this fear of
It's,
death.
it's because of the unknown, right? Like all fear is because of the unknown of
Yeah.
what will happen
Yeah.
after. If I take this action, I don't know what's gonna happen, right? But just the fear of death, that's a massive one because just even like this technologies today that people are building or corporations are building to try to preserve lifetime. Just kind of go back because they don't know what's gonna happen, so they're trying to, and people trying to live forever and things like that. Like what's his name? There was the one dude's name. He said, "Do not die." What's his name again?
Brian Johnson.
Brian, yeah, do not die. And this guy,
I love him, man.
I think that's
so
pretty interesting.
funny.
Yeah. Why is that?
Just the way that he is. He's so like authentically real and weird, and he doesn't care. And he puts stuff out there. He gets in fights with people online about different products, and
Interesting.
it's fun.
Yeah,
I think I find it very entertaining what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good cause too. Even if it doesn't work, it's like we need people like that in our society. We need people to take the extremes on certain topics and see how far humanity can go there.
Now, I'm very, is that aligned with the biblical text? Though,
I'll ask you a question. Why is it that some of the earliest people in the Bible lived up to be hundreds of years?
yeah, I don't know that, to be honest. I don't know that. I was curious
Is
about
that
that.
who we are supposed to be?
I don't
Is
know
that
that.
a
I,
less, you know,
yeah,
diluted version of humanity? I don't know.
that is a very interesting, and I don't know that. Obviously, God had
Like,
his.
what if we're just like the way aging works is like your DNA has telomeres and it gets shorter over time. That's why you age. What if when we reproduce, we have also made our capacity lower over time? I don't know.
By reproducing?
This is some bro science stuff.
Bro, this guy.
But no, like our lifespan has gotten longer because of technology and medical advancements. But like our actual lifespan and our real, like, how long we can actually live. I don't know. What's our potential? If we had all of the medical advancements possible, what is our potential? Is it actually immortality? Do we even want that? That's the
Yeah,
question.
that's
Because like it also comes to another point, like the ship of Theseus concept, where if you have a ship and you replace all of the wood pieces of the ship, is that still the same ship at the end? So if you were you, but in the future, let's say you could, grow your heart. So if you ever have heart problems, you just replace your heart. If you lose a limb, you can get a bionic limb that's identical but more powerful. You lose an eye, same thing. Like, start replacing pieces of yourself. When is it stop being you?
that's
Is your soul still there if you're completely different?
yeah,
But
that's
then, like, what if someone's in a vegetative state and they move themselves to a healthier body? Is that still them?
I think I think
There's a lot of,
I think you do lose yourself in that process.
but you don't know that.
I think because I think people have like heart like there's like heart transplants. Like that's actually a thing now, you can transfer the heart. And I think
But that's someone else's heart.
huh?
That's always someone else's heart.
Oh, that is
I'm saying, like, if you could clone your own heart to be your heart, and it's just a healthier version of your heart, and you put it in your body once your heart stops being as
if
healthy.
you clone your heart,
Yes.
is that something that is that a thing now?
I'm sure there's people working on it. You can clone parts of your body. You can clone. I think there's the ethical questions.
Yeah.
It's not in my wheelhouse to. I mean, the ethical nature of cloning a version of yourself and
Yeah.
leaving it in a vat. Is it conscious? Is it a person? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And just kind of because you asked a question, so it's like because people, like, one of the major things that people are afraid of is like the fear of death, right? And it's funny because like me and my friend, we were talking about this yesterday as well. It's like if somebody had a gun to your head right now, and like just like was threatening you, I think just biologically you probably would be scared, But I think it's like your spirit at the same time. I mean, if you are a Christian and you are saved, like why should you be fear? Why really should you fear? Because if you kind of, based upon like what the Bible says, like if you believe in God, then you have salvation. You live for in eternity. If somebody kills me, it's like, okay, I know that I'm going to a better place. I'm going to a better place and kind of live in the world behind. And so sometimes when I think about this, like, no, I don't think I would fear.
You don't think you would fear if someone pointed a gun at your head?
Like I said, like biologically, yes,
Yeah.
but I'm not afraid of dying. Biologically, I would be I'll be afraid, but like
I'm still afraid of dying.
Dying?
Like, I don't want to die because of all the things I'd be giving up in the world
Y-
now.
y-
Like,
y-
if you imagine if you
but
have
like,
family,
you had no like you know you
you
had
wouldn't
no
be thinking about yourself. You would
like
think about your family.
you had no control of it though. It's like somebody like
I would be pissed if someone put a gun on my head. I would be boiling on the inside. I can't accept that. You
Yeah.
kill me right now? I have so much I need to do, man.
I mean, yeah, you're
But no, I get what
But-
you mean. I get what you mean. Like, ultimately, if I do die and it comes, like, it's God's will, I can't control that.
Yeah.
Anything out of my control, I leave it up to God and I trust Him fully.
yeah.
And I'm gonna do, everything I can while I have this life to make sure it's a good life. That includes protecting myself from someone pointing a gun at my head.
Yeah. No, that's the yeah. That's I mean that is valid, right? And so like just the other thing about this. So there's like now we have fear. We're talking about fear, and then like the other thing I want to tie that is like faith, right? Also, if you have faith, then there's no reason really to fear, because like if fear is the absence of like because we don't know like the unknown, but like faith is believing that there is. If we're talking about like in the aspect of like God, we believe that there is a God that is gonna take care of all of us and take care of our need, et cetera, right? So like if you have faith, then you tend to not fear. Would you agree with that?
No.
Why is that?
You still fear. It's a natural response. You can't control it.
And
But it's not like you dwell in the fear. I would say there's a
and so
difference between those two.
yeah, and so here's what I mean by that. So because this used to happen to me. Like I would be scared of, okay, this is like when I was like I had like financial issues, right? This is like back then when I wasn't really like smart with my finances. But like I would be afraid that, and at the same time, like my faith wasn't like I wasn't like my faith in God wasn't so strong. Dude, I would always fear that like, oh, what happens tomorrow? Like I don't have the money to pay for rent. I don't have the money to like my business is gonna fail. Like, dude, that was a big part of what like I woke me up at night, right? But then now, like I have faith in God that whatever happens, He's gonna take care of my need, and so I don't. That's not something that I fear
But you're
anymore.
not
To
in
be
the same
honest.
position you were back then.
Okay, that is true, but I'm talking about even before I got to this point. Even before I got to this point, like as I was developing, I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever happens tomorrow, it's like God is gonna take care of my need, and so like that fear was not the same thing. Even now, it's like I could still fear. Okay, cool. Like, what if I was to lose it all tomorrow? If I was to lose it all tomorrow, like, okay, God can take care of my need. It's still something that I could have feared
Yeah.
even till now, regardless of like what the circumstance and what the situation is. And I think that a lot of people like they make a lot of money, but dude, they still fear of losing the money, losing that, right? And so that's why I'm saying like just having faith can also diminishes that fear.
Yeah.
Whatever happens tomorrow, dude, you're taken care of. God takes care of all your needs. That's what I mean, and that's what I mean by that. Like with faith, right? Which I think also casts out like fear.
Yeah.
But why do
I agreed. I agree with you fully on the like if you place faith in God to take care of you, it will happen. But at the same time, you have to listen to hear what God is saying to you too, because faith without action is nothing.
right?
So if you're just sitting there in your apartment, not doing anything, not going outside, God, please help me take care of my rent. Maybe someone comes and gives you $2,000 to pay for your rent. Maybe, but will that happen every month?
No, that probably wouldn't happen
not.
every month. Yeah.
So what do you have to do so that you don't have that
No.
problem, and then trust God in delivering when you do put in the work? I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, like the first
between just pure blind faith with no action, and then faith with action.
Yeah,
Versus just action itself.
Yeah.
Anything with action is better.
Right, absolutely, right, absolutely, and like but the first aspect of that is just having faith,
Yeah.
right? And so just having that faith, it's like, okay, I know God is gonna instruct me and gonna guide me, and like obviously you need to take action, but like just like at the very root, that faith has to be there,
Yeah, I agree.
right? And so that's particularly what I mean, like that faith has to be there in the beginning, right?
Faith in
and
God is also, in a sense, faith in yourself as well.
faith in yourself, okay,
Yeah, like God gave you certain talents and abilities for you to perform and do things. You have to have belief in yourself to be able to execute what God wants you to execute.
Yep.
And then you have faith in God to control and help you in all things you can.
yeah, that's true too,
So
but
it's a bit of both.
yeah,
It's definitely like faith. I think those two are connected for sure.
Yeah, but to some extent of that too, it's like sometimes we don't have like that ability in ourselves. Like sometimes we don't have that. Like even though God, like
Yeah, but that's where the faith comes from.
Yeah.
I have the faith that I'll get the ability, or I'll have the faith that God will bring someone who will teach me the ability. Stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like that would be definitely rooted in faith.
yeah,
But a lot of times, at the beginning, when you don't have the clear path and you don't have the experience to back up anything that you're doing, and you decide to do it, to overcome that fear blindly is through faith. That eventually, I will figure it out. Eventually, God will help me. Eventually, this is what God wants me to do. Why am I feeling this way? God is telling me to move in this path
Right.
for a reason, and I trust in Him fully. So I'm going to move in this path, even though I don't see where it goes.
right.
It's like that would be the faith that's rooted in those actions.
Right. And just like I think just like another thing too is that it's over experience, right? Because in the beginning, yeah, you're like going back to like the business thing, like you are gonna have that initial fear in the beginning, right? But then as like you take action, like the data that you're building through like the actions, right? With enough data, with enough action, ultimately like that fear kind of dissipates, right? Now this is a little bit outside of like the faith thing, right? But like as you continuously take action towards doing particular things, you build up data, right? And this is how I like to explain it. Once you like when you have enough data, there's not necessarily any reason to fear because like you already have like that experience, right? And again, I like to use the word data. You already have that data that backs up like your action, and so there's no reason for you to particularly fear. And so I think a lot of times, sometimes you need to build up data. You need to go through enough experiences. You need to like take enough actions to be able to build that data. And so naturally, like I can go like and probably start. Okay, I don't want to say start any business, but like I don't have the fear of starting a business because that's I shouldn't be starting any more business. But like I don't have the fear of starting a business because like I've started multiple business in the past, right? I know the general like roadmap, right? And so I no longer have that fear. So if I have an idea, like me and Kai can go out there and and start a business, right? Because we kind of already know like that prerequisite of what needs to happen to start a business, right? And that's just through the data. And so that's what I mean by data. We've taken multiple actions in the step. We've taken multiple actions in the past to where now we have again that data to be able to assist us, or at least not to be able to fear starting a new venture or a new business, right? And so just kind of going back, I think a lot of times we just need to have enough data to kind of help us overcome like fear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you don't have that data if you didn't start, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's an at this point I can say fear is an indicator that I'm probably going in the right direction
Oof, that's a
because
good one. That's a good
it's a
one.
new thing that I haven't experienced yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy for us to sit here and say, yeah, I can start a business whenever and get from X to Y because I've
Mm-hmm.
done it before multiple times. So there's no fear there because the fog is lifted.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything else that we haven't gotten to yet. That's where the fear is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're moving in a direction where you feel fear, then you're most likely moving in the right place because it's going to force you to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of
That's a
how I
good.
view it now. Like
That's
fear is like a
indicator that
innate
you're in the right
response that I'm
direction.
yeah, and my
I like
innate
that.
response to fear now is I need to face it immediately.
Mm.
Whether that's I'm going to a new event and I'm meeting people in the industry and I have to talk to them, but I have no idea how to start conversations with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna do it once. And now I've done it once, I can do it again multiple times. But now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, the second time I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try to sell them on my services this
Mm.
time, and et cetera. You keep building on that, and every time you reach a point where you feel fear and you feel like you're gonna do something, whether that's you're gonna mess up or you're not good enough or that person's scary, this person's a super famous online business guru, but you're gonna go talk to him anyways. Like those things are indicators for you to push forward now. The other, the other side is like, okay, yeah, you probably should fear jumping off a cliff without seeing what's at the bottom,
Mm. Mm.
literally, because that could be your death,
Yeah.
right? So like, there's different types of fear, but I think most of the fears now is just an indicator of us to push forward.
I like that. I do like that. And I think just kind of taking a step back with that too is you said like we fear just kind of like messing up that we're not going to be good, right? And whatever the particular thing is, right? And actually, this is like I think I first learned this from Alex Morsey, which somebody we all follow on online. But yeah, I think it is okay. It is to a large degree like kind of natural to be afraid of not being good at something in the first place. But like I think the thing that you also have to understand is that like nobody is good. Like whenever you start something new, like if you have no data on that, like you're not gonna be good. Like it's almost impossible for you to be good, right? And just having that expectation that you should be good, because that's something that's kind of hindered me in the past. To have that expectation that you should be good is not realistic because you have no data on that you've ever done that particular thing, right? And I know that's the very thing that cripples a lot of people. Like you're not supposed to be good at whenever you start something brand new. Like you're not supposed to, and it's unrealistic to have that expectation that you should, right? And so a lot of people fear that first step. Oh, like what if I'm not good? What if like the expectation that you're not gonna be good? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that is a misconception is like once you get past that, you're never going to fear that again. Nope, you still fear it. You still feel it every time. Every time you do something slightly different,
Different.
slightly new, you still feel that fear.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
It goes away.
And I think it's also kind of how you interpret it. Like you kind of interpret that feeling. Because I think sometimes it's not even fear, but we interpret it as fear. I don't know. Sometimes
Heightened sense of awareness.
just excitement to a large degree because when I play sports, because I played college soccer, and so literally before every game, I almost kind of felt anxious. There's this feeling inside of me, like my hands will still get sweaty, like my heart would pump. But I think some people will kind of see that as fear, but I think it was just more so excitement because I like very much love the sport of. And I think sometimes that's what it is too, just kind of the choosing how you interpret like the very feeling that is coming inside of you. Because a lot of times it just may not be fear, but we see it as fear because it seems very similar to fear in terms of like the emotion that happens internally, right? But then kind of changing how you perceive that. Oh, I'm excited. Now, okay, that you're more likely to kind of go attack this thing because of that excitement that comes out of you from that. Again, I think it's just another to a point of our interpretation how we perceive the very feeling that we're feeling inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's always a mix of a lot of different emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know me. I don't like labeling things like the feelings I have in what I would perceive to be untruthful. So if I'm scared, I'm gonna tell myself, yeah, you're scared, but you're gonna do it anyways, or you're gonna figure it out, or whatever. Like acknowledging the feeling has always been for me it serves me better because it's not masking something.
Okay. No, that's true. That's facts. That's.
But I get what you're saying. Like you can try and transmute it, but I think there's like when you're doing that, you're getting ready for a game. Like back in high school, I did football. Actually, I wasn't playing much. So I wasn't too scared, but I did have the jitters. Or like before public speaking, for example, I'll have the jitters.
You did public speaking?
Yeah, I've done public speaking.
Okay.
But yeah, it's half excitement, half fear, and a little bit of, I guess, potential opportunity.
Okay.
I guess that feeds more into the excitement. So.
No, that's facts. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
it's a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a mix of a lot of things. Yeah, and so yeah, that's those are kind of like the main things I wanted to kind of just kind of how kind of what does like the Bible says about fear. Obviously, God says like do not fear, and there's also like that faith-based perspective. It's like as you have more faith in God, that I'm not gonna say like all fear just kind of dissipates, but like to a large extent, like there's things that you no longer fear about because just having faith in God, you just know that those things are going to be taken care of, right? Again, that's not to say that you won't ever fear again, and then also just like the fear that you also sometimes do come about you is also kind of how do you, like you said, like transmute it. That's the word that you use, but like how you translate those emotions, right? Because it's not always fear, right? And the reason why I think that this topic is so big and so massive is that it just cripples us from just doing a lot of things, ultimately just kind of achieving our purpose in life, right? And so I think that's just a very big thing. Yeah, I think that's just a very big thing. Kai, like anything you want to add on that?
No, not in particular.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we're gonna tie this one. We're gonna take this one home. I'm very curious, and I want you guys to leave this down in the comment section below, right? At what particular time in your life did you greatly fear something, and then what happened after you took action? Let me say that again. At what particular time in your life did you fear something, right? But then you chose not to listen to the fear and took action. And then what happened after you took that action? Another thing that I also want to add on top of this too is I think sometimes just in terms of like spirituality, like those fears don't necessarily come from us. When we talk about like evil spirits, something that I talk about to a large extent in the first episode. So sometimes like the devil will like make us fear things that we shouldn't fear. Like we'll inject those thoughts of fear inside of our mind, right? And okay, God says do not fear, right? Why should you fear? Right? If we're created in the likeness and the image of God, God did not fear. right? And so sometimes it's upon us to, once we recognize those fears, like, is that a fear? Should I really be afraid of this? If not, okay, cool. It seems like the enemy is trying to attack me by making me fear something that could potentially be very massive for me in terms of the direction that where the Lord is trying to lead me. And so it's, a lot of times you have to speak against those fear. For the Lord said, I do not fear. I should not fear, right? If we're created in the likeness and the image of God. Right? Something to think about. Anything to add on top of that one?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's definitely, the devil will make you think things because he wants you to do what you should not be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like I keep saying the very confusing thing, because like there's a lot of different things that you kind of have to, okay, cool. Is this fear that's coming just from like my innate, like just as being a human being? Or is this like, am I just interpreting what I'm feeling as incorrectly? Or is the devil trying to just inject his fears into my head? Because I know it's, you kind of have to.
I think they're the same, man.
They think they're all the same?
I think they're all
I mean,
the
they
same.
all could, they could all be the same. Yeah, they could all be the same.
Inherently, at the root of it, I think they're all the same.
Yeah.
Because well, let's just say the consequences of your actions are, again, you don't know those, right? So the fear is preventing you from doing something or preventing you from not doing something. Then what is the consequence of that thing? And it's hard to grasp that when you're in the moment. But if you were to assume that all good things come from God, bad things come from the devil, then the devil stopping you through fear is trying to prevent you from reaching the good things, being closer to God, and vice versa. So I do think that they overlap.
Yeah, that's another good point. But
also, like, God could give you the fear.
God could give you fear
to prevent you from doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Oof.
That's a good. But then that's like the consequence part. Like, is the consequence a bad thing? And he gives you, like, we have a fear of God. We should have a fear of God.
Yeah.
Fear of sinning, because that leads us to bad consequences.
Yep.
So innately, I think they're all intertwined.
Okay.
And it may be hard in the moment to distinguish, but I think ultimately if you just, I don't know, trust in God and push through the fear.
No, that's a good point. No, that's another good point.
Something that you know is good.
That's another good point.
Yeah.
But anywho, guys, we're gonna close that one. We're gonna close this episode with that. And if you made it all the way through this episode, thank you for watching. And I'm excited for the next one. We'll see you soon.
Peace
Adios.
out.